I'm so glad to have you all back here. And for the reason that this next session focuses on sustainability activations and a carbon calculation workshop that will start with a 15-minute Q&A on the main stage with Shane Harker, President and Founder, Rethink Resource, and a brief intro from Mike Harwood, National Director, Technical Support and Development, Sunbelt Film and TV, followed by some free time to explore our immersive activations. We've got clean mobile power, green marketplace, EV test rides, CBC Kids Studio Tour, and more. So for our carbon calculation, get ready to measure your data with Samantha Lee and Elsa Takungaga. I hope I said that right. I'm so sorry if I didn't. So please join them in the conference room. But for now, we are going to play a 3-minute video, and then I'm going to moderate with Shane Harker, so please enjoy.
A production set is a marvel of creativity and ingenuity, a place where hundreds of skilled creators collaborate to produce moments that resonate beyond the screen. But behind the scenes, tons of waste are generated on set every single day. And like us, you might have wondered, where does it all go? Is it even being recycled? And how can we do our part to reduce our environmental impact? We're all too familiar with the struggle, balancing sustainability with budgets, creativity with compliance. It's tough. Actually, it's a full-time job. And for all our good intentions, it often feels like we're powerless to make the changes that we know need to be made. But with the right kind of help, change isn't just possible, it's easy. At Rethink Resource, we specialize in providing net zero waste diversion solutions for the film and television industry. Think of us as your in-house diversion experts, equipped with the tools and know-how to solve any waste problem. From construction waste to organics, we're committed to maximizing your diversion at every step. And with location and studio pickups, customized receptacles and signage, and real-time data and reporting, diverting waste on set has never been easier. Our approach goes far beyond traditional recycling methods to transform your waste into valuable resources while decarbonizing your production. We leverage methods grounded in circular economy principles like reuse, upcycling, and composting to use waste at its highest value. By meticulously hand sorting, tracking, and offsetting the impact of every kilogram we collect, we keep waste out of landfills while lowering your carbon footprint. And with the help of our soon-to-launch carbon accounting and offsetting program, we'll actually bring your waste emissions down to zero. Bottom line, when you work with us, you can be sure that your waste is not only going where it should, but is actually making a positive impact. By doing things differently, we've successfully diverted over 10 million kilograms of waste from landfill. And we're not stopping there. By March 2025, we'll be net carbon zero for scopes 1, 2, and 3 emissions. And by 2028, we'll have a 100% electric fleet. Together, we can build a truly sustainable future for the film and television industry. The question is, who's helping you rethink waste?
Okay, I'd like to welcome Shane Harker for the Q&A. All right, let's see, where is our first question?
Thank you. I know you kind of touched on it in the video, and I was just having a conversation earlier that people are kind of pessimistic about how they whether they sort their waste like at home or in an office, and whether it all just goes to the same place through like the municipal pickups. Could you tell us a little bit about what does happen with most of the waste that's picked up if it's not picked up by someone like Rethink?
That's a great question. And if you put stuff in your blue bin or your green bin at home, like municipalities pride themselves and they actually compete to divert waste. And so there is a misconception that, say, plastics aren't recycled. There was a time when China stopped taking recyclables where stuff was being shipped overseas and there was a little bit of shadiness going on there. But many companies, including Rethink, bring our plastics to a company called EFS Plastics, and they're in Listowel, Ontario. And so typically what happens with your blue bin, or if we're hauling it, or if it's a reputable hauler, they're taking out your number one plastics, your water bottles, your number two plastics, like are your laundry jugs, and then they bale everything else, and it goes to this company, EFS Plastics, that separates it. And they actually have a program where they have a dust program that if it's too fine to go through the recycling process, that stuff goes to a concrete plant to use as energy to run the plant. And so most of that stuff is recycled. Your green bin program, definitely municipalities track that stuff, even if it's a private contractor that does that. So did that answer your question?
Okay, got a question up here in the front.
Thank you so much. I was curious, I kind of have two-part question. The first one is affordability of your service. Like if we're talking about students projects or like, okay, student maybe a little bit like low budget, no budget. Do you have options like that comparing to, you know, like of course big budget films can afford that, but what about the lower and no budget? As well as what are the advice you give to all types of all budgets? What you wish they did something on set to make your life easier?
Well, so great questions. I think the reason my business started, the reason I'm here is I want to make an impact on the environment, right? So I used to work for one of the big waste haulers, and I hate greenwashing. And so if somebody wants to divert waste and there's an interest in it and wants to work, then I've never refused anybody working with anybody that says like, hey, how can we do this? And your question of like, how can you make our life easier? So the biggest, I guess, challenge or service that we provide to film sets is that we're hand sorting the waste. And we went on a set at a certain point, and that beautiful signage that we had up there and everything's color coded, like it doesn't really get any better than that. And somebody's walking up and they're having a conversation and they had a banana and they stopped and they looked, but they're like thinking of the conversation, and they put the banana peel in the black bin. And so it doesn't matter where you are, which municipality you are, the banana peel goes in the green bin. And so that's the biggest challenge that we have, or I don't want to say challenge, that's a service that we provide, but that takes a lot of time, and we charge for that because we're a for-profit company. In order for us to grow and create more impact, we need to make money. So I think really to answer your question, if it's a lower budget film and they do all of the sorting on set, then we can be much more cost effective picking it up. And you know, when we started in the film industry in 2020, I got a call, and our brand was growing as a sustainable brand that we actually diverted the waste. And they were like, oh, can you, you've never worked in the film industry, can you do this? And I'm like, we can do anything you need. So we're picking up, between 6 and 7 a.m. in Dundas, Ontario, because people are going to church on location. So we can do anything, but those sort of extreme circumstances cost more money. So did that answer your question? Right? So if you do more on set and less technical, then it's less expensive.
Shane, as many of us in the industry and sustainability know, there's a problem with this patchwork quilt throughout the Southern Ontario region in particular, where some municipalities will take certain types of waste, others will take different types of waste. None of them seem to be consistent in always taking the same types of waste. Can you just talk a little bit about that consistency and if you do or don't find that a challenge, and if you do find it a challenge, how do you work around that?
So we don't find it a challenge because we don't deal with municipalities. Municipalities actually charge a lot more money to dispose of stuff. We thankfully have got to a stage so that the footage in there, that was our facility. And so we've got to a stage where we're doing a lot of the sorting ourselves, and where we get to a point, like most people know plastic is worth money. So some of the stuff we're actually separating and baling and making a couple of bucks off that. And so that's the ways that we work to drive down costs if we can make money on the back end, right? So we don't experience the challenges with that. I think it's residential stuff mostly where that becomes an issue, but we don't experience that.
Yeah, go ahead.
My question is, what do you think your biggest challenge is when collecting waste and just in general in this business?
I would say, again, it's a challenge, but it's how we make money is the right stuff going in the right bin. And so there was a vision when we started down this path. We did a production and we provided diversion report. And the diversion was very low. And then they said, well, how do we improve this? So we did this compostable program, and where now the caterer came to us and because they were being sold stuff that had green leaves on it, but it wasn't compostable. And so when something doesn't get eaten, there's a lot of food waste that ends up in the bin. If it's in compostables, it's a lot easier to handle because then it can just go to the compost facility. But I would say that on average, if a production doesn't have a compostable packaging program, then we're looking at less than 50%. And what we do when we do our audits is we literally count the pieces, because most audits are done by weight. And we do it by piece because what we need to or try and correct is the human behavior. How many times has somebody put the wrong piece in the wrong bin? So we literally end up with a percentage, and it's 48 or 49 if there's not a compostable program. And when we have a compostable packaging program, that goes up to like 75% kind of overnight. So that I would say would be the biggest challenge, is the right thing to right bin.
Nice. Okay, I think we might have time for one more, and then we will have to wrap it up. So if you have one, now is the time to not be shy and raise your hand. Go.
This might be a bit more complex because I know that we had the strikes and so on, but I'm wondering if you can talk about the growth curve and the interest that you've seen in the industry. Like, how many productions are typically finding service providers such as yourself as compared to a few years ago? And maybe as a tag on to that is, what do you feel is the biggest myth that you're still trying to bust when productions are reaching out for your services?
We started in the film industry in 2020, and it was kind of a blessing. So most of our customers were restaurant and food space, and then COVID hit and we dropped. And then thankfully we got a call in the film industry and kind of started making waves. It probably saved our life that year. And so since then, I would say from a dollar value, like we've grown 400% from that first year. We now are investing a lot of time and effort into getting our brand out there. So our brand was present before as far as being the most sustainable in diversion. Like, no waste company ever is talking about carbon accounting. And so we've grown 4 times, I guess. From one of the reasons I wanted to come here and do this was because there's a whole bunch of companies that say they're doing stuff and they're not doing it, or they're doing a percentage of it or a portion of it and they're not. And so I would say the myth is, if it sounds too good to be true, so some people will reach out and they're like, hey, what are your services? But this company is doing it for like 50%. And I was like, well, why don't you go for a tour of their facility? And in some cases they ask the question and they're like, oh no, it's proprietary. Well, you saw what we do. What's proprietary about that? And so if it sounds too good to be true, or somebody says, yeah, we'll just take care of it, that's the myth. Like styrofoam with paint and glue on it. We did that for David, where there was packaging for lighting and we expanded polystyrene. We figured out how to recycle it, but we couldn't recycle the part with glue on it. So when you have 2 things put together and someone says they're recycling it, they're lying to you. That would be the biggest myth.
Well, thank you so much, Shane, for demystifying diversion. Such an important conversation, and I love how candidly that flowed. So thank you for doing that.
Thank you.